Please rise for invocation by Pastor Mike Swingle of First Baptist Church of Harbor Oaks.
Wow, there's Mike.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, as we begin this proceedings tonight, Father, I just want to bathe each one of these council members, our mayor, each speaker, each person that comes before this meeting. I just want to cover them, Lord. And I just want to ask that you would go before them, Lord. Allow this meeting to go according to your plan. Father, I ask that you would continue, Lord, to bless this city. Father, that you give wisdom and guidance, Lord, to those who lead it. Thank you, Lord, for the opportunity, Father, that you give us to lead. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilmember Foley.
Here.
Councilmember Tremont.
Here.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Here.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Here.
Mayor Burnett.
Here, we have a quorum. First item of business, I need a motion to approve the agenda for the evening.
So moved. Second.
There you go.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have an agenda. Special awards, reports, recognition, and proclamations. Citizen Award from the Police Department. Chief Grimaldi.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We do have a citizen commendation this evening for citizen Alan Ramos. If Alan Ramos would step forward.
See here.
I'd also like to ask if Sheriff Mike Chitt would step forward as well, please.
And I don't have a plate, so we're good. It's a mailbox.
Yeah.
It's a
Down the slope, okay there.
The citizen commendation from the Port Orange Police Department to citizen Alan Ramos. Mr. Alan Ramos, while working for Waste Pro Management Service and operating a garbage truck, witnessed a vehicle traveling west on Town West Boulevard violently strike a bicyclist traveling in the same direction. The vehicle continued on its path of travel, only slowing down for a short period of time and then speeding away, leaving the struck bicyclists lying on the side of the road. Mr. Ramos immediately stopped to render aid to the struck bicyclist, called 911 to report the incident and summoned first responders, and was able to provide valuable description of the hit-and-run vehicle to the responding officers. Mr. Ramos further informed the investigating officers that the entire incident was recorded on his truck's dash cam video. Sometimes we just get lucky. Mr. Ramos his immediate action to provide assistance to the struck bicyclist, who was later identified as Volusia County Sheriff Michael Chitwood, provide valuable eyewitness testimony, and provide digital video evidence of the entire incident directly resulted in the police locating and identifying the suspect in this felony hit-and-run incident. Without his valuable assistance, this case would not have been resolved so efficiently and so quickly as it was. As a side note, I believe we made the arrest that evening.
perfect.
Mr. Ramos is hereby commended and awarded the Port Orange Police Department Citizen Commendation for his selfless act of rendering aid to another person in a time of need. Congratulations and thank you. Shouldn't I get a mask on, I guess?
The wide-angle lens.
Why? That's outstanding.
And Mr. Ramos, I also like to, it's a small, very small token, it's just a Port Orange Police Department mug, which I cherish giving to you in front of the, and a challenge coin, more importantly, Port Orange Police Department challenge coin. We issue these whenever a citizen or one of our officers meets a challenge. We certainly met that challenge, and you were a great citizen to provide that assistance, not only to the sheriff, but to us as well. So, great job. Thank you.
You can tell him that the sheriff's office gave you a $50 golf shirt.
He has a bigger budget.
Alan, you do realize that you're now going to be doing a different route because I need somebody in my neighborhood. What's happening?
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you for the first.
Sheriff,
Thank you.
don't go anywhere. I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
One, are you going to give up bicycling?
No.
Okay, very good. Next question. Were you transported?
I have to tell you, and I want to say this to everybody in this room, you know, for 34 years, I was the guy that stood over top of victims. But after my guardian angel here, when you're laying there, you don't know what's going on, the car's going away, and he's relaxed. I got 911 on the phone. Police and fire show up, and they treated me, and I know they treat everybody the same way.
Yeah.
They treated me like I was a VIP. They took absolute perfect care of me. Our guys working closely with Port Orange and with Alan's video were able to make an arrest 8 hours later.
Nice.
I just, you know, I went to pay a visit to the fire station to thank them. I owe lunch to their responding officers, but Tom said don't do it.
So,
He said you'll show me up because I don't pay any money, but he doesn't pay for any lunches. But it was it could have been a much worse situation. But the way I was treated,
Yeah.
and I know every person in Port Orange when they come in contact with your police officers or your firefighters are treated the same way.
so you were transported in a red, white, and blue
I was
ambulance
transported
that said
in a
Port
red way.
Orange.
They didn't hit a bump. I will tell you,
Perfect,
they did not hit a bump,
perfect.
which was fantastic when you're laying there.
Perfect.
No matter how hard they
And
try.
they kept telling me, you don't want our drugs, wait till you get to the hospital. If you want any pain medication, wait till you get to our hospital. You'll be better off. in
Well,
Halifax.
good deal.
But you should be extremely proud of, as I was, of
Absolutely.
everybody that responded. Like I said, it's funny, you do this for a living, and you know this, Scott, and then when you're the one laying there, you really get a bigger appreciation for what the men and women in public safety do to keep this place safe.
Well, we're glad you're all right and glad to see you here tonight, Sheriff.
Thank you. Now, I don't know if we can pay him enough money, but he's got this, you know, I'm trying to recruit him to the sheriff's.
Well, he's.
I think Waste Pro's going up his salary a little bit.
I do know this, and let's not forget Waste Pro in all this.
Absolutely.
Because not only have they been a terrific partner in the city for 10 years now, and we've just re-upped, this is why. They had the commitment to make sure that those cameras were on those trucks. And those cameras were there because they want to serve their client, our citizens, the best way possible. And in this case, boy, did that ever come through. That was a terrific investment on their part and an investment in their people, and Alan showed it. We've got to thank Waste Pro as well. Thank you very much. Chase, if you join me down here. Coach. And you talk about coaching legends in the city of Port Orange, in Atlantic High School over what, 20 years? 26 years. 500 wins? More than 500 wins. You've had, what, Final Four appearances at least 3 or 4 times? You've had teams that go deep. You've had a McDonald's All-American. You've had an Olympian, I believe. 26 years of coaching girls basketball at good old Atlantic High School in little old Port Orange. I went out to your last home game and we declared it via proclamation, Coach George Butt's Day. And this guy right here, Coach Tremont, said that's great, but it's not enough. We needed to bring you here so that everybody can talk about it and see not just the accomplishments on the court, but I want to talk about, just for a second, the number of lives you've touched. Those 12 girls every year or more, multiplied by the number of years, then there's their families and their friends. And I tell you what, it's amazing to go to a girls' game and you see more people in the stands to watch the girls play than you do the boys play. And that didn't matter how good the boys were or weren't. That was just what this man did. And we cannot thank you enough for the lives you've touched. And I'm going to allow Councilman Coach Tremont to make this presentation.
Pardon me. It's an honor to make this presentation on behalf of Coach Butts, but before I just read this brief appreciation, do want to recognize his lovely family over here as well. Wife, you've got children and grandchildren here to be here for tonight.
We've hidden behind the TV. So y'all want to come out and take some good pictures, please.
Yeah.
Please do.
Okay, very good. Yeah, we'll call you up for some pictures afterwards. But just this was really personal and sentimental to me. I come from a coach's family. My father was a coach for years. My mother was a coach, and I was a coach. And I can tell you what, one of the most interesting and fascinating realities is that I made more enemies as a coach than I do as a politician. So I had the utmost respect for Coach Butts because Bobby Knight said it great. In order to be a great coach, you have to have the ability to say no, and that's not easy to do. To say no at the same time, still communicate that you love your players and you want the best for them. And Coach Butts embodies that entirely. Matter of fact, in one of those Final Four, your first Final Four in 1998, we were there together. I as a player and you as a coach, and so we have a long history in this game. And I'm a purist of the game of basketball. And what I love about Coach Butts is that he teaches the fundamentals of the game, which is a lost art today, unfortunately. But the most important is not just the fact that he teaches the fundamentals, but the fact that the fundamentals that he teaches are to be applied for success on and off the court. His most important and most highest priority is the well-being and livelihood and the future of the students that he reaches. So it's an honor to make this presentation. A certificate of appreciation presented to Coach George E. Butts Sr. in recognition and appreciation of your 35 years of distinguished service to the Atlantic High School girls basketball program and to the city of Port Orange. Thank you for your service.
We'll turn in however many directions we got to turn in.
You all want to come real quick?
He wasn't asking when he said it. It might have sounded like he was.
We'll have to run any sprints if you don't.
Thank you all for wearing This is the hard part about COVID is hugs, handshakes, high fives, all the things you want to do for these folks.
And the final comment as they walk by, you guys, it's important to understand the team behind the team is the
Hey,
family
Coach.
right here.
Hey, Coach.
Coach.
Yeah, real quick, if you could just help us out with one. There is one thing that we seem to be wrestling with quite a bit here on the city council. Maybe you could help us out, if you don't mind. In their prime, Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
In their prime,
In their primes.
Michael Jordan.
There it is.
Told you it wasn't a question.
That's it. We're putting that to rest. Congrats, Coach.
Coach, appreciate you.
Thank you so much. You're going to take that certificate back.
And I'm supposed to follow that with a Water Conservation Month proclamation. I don't know how I quite do that.
Yeah, how do you do
Give it
that?
the same bombastic quality, but we will give it a try. Whereas water is a basic and essential need for every living creature, and whereas the state of Florida water management districts and the city of Port Orange are working together to increase awareness about the importance of water conservation. And whereas the city of Port Orange and the state of Florida has designated April, typically a month when water demands are most acute, Florida's Water Conservation Month, to educate the citizens about how they can save Florida's precious water resources. And the city of Port Orange has always encouraged and supported water conservation through various educational programs and events. And whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can make a difference when it comes to conserving water, and whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can help by saving water and thus promote a healthy economy and community. And now, therefore, I, Donald O. Burnett, Mayor of the City of Port Orange, do hereby proclaim the month of April as Water Conservation Month in the City of Port Orange, Florida. And I'm calling on each citizen and business to help protect our precious resource by practicing water-saving measures and becoming more aware of the need to save water. And with my signature and the seal of the city, it is so declared. And did we have?
On Zoom.
There she is. Hey, Abby, how are you?
Hey, great. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me this evening. I appreciate it. I understand it's an exception for me to attend virtually, but I figured me bouncing between 41 cities, I didn't want to be an individual super spreader in my beloved towns. But thank you so much for supporting Water Conservation Month. I will admit it is a bit hard to stand in the shadow of Mike Chitwood and follow a superhero basketball coach with a baby, but we'll move forward.
Well, Abby, we got to admit, water is not exciting, but water is one of the most vital resources that we have. So
I think
it might not be exciting, but it is very, very important.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we appreciate your support. Please join us on the Water Less campaign. It's available on our website. We will absolutely give you all shout outs and kudos on social media, particularly for your participation in Water Conservation Month. We have a year-long campaign about watering less, and all that information is available on our website. If we can get people to simply check their sprinkler timers and turn them off when it's raining, I think we'll, it's one small step, but a very big and important one. And won't take up too much more of your time. I simply want to say thank you and a big shout out to Ms. Robin Fenwick, who helped make all this happen, and your IT folks. I don't take it lightly, the amount of time that's required by staff, so I absolutely appreciate it.
Well, I know that your position with the St. John's Water Management District requires you to cover a lot of territory and a lot of people and a lot of places, and this is but one tool, and we're glad to have you here with us tonight, and no matter what fashion that might be. So thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Good to see you. And that brings us to the report from Kemper Sports on Cypress Head Golf Course. You're not going to bring Mr. Green up here with you?
No,
Because I wanted to rib him about his, and kind of congratulate him.
He's going to be later on. He's going to be later on the
Okay.
agenda.
So I get to rib him and congratulate him later then.
Bob Duquette, General Manager, Cypress Head Golf Course, Ms. City Manager, members of the council, Mr. Mayor. Things have been really great at the golf course. I'm going to do a little bit of a kind of a snapshot review for both January and February, since it's the last time that actually you would have heard from me. January, with the absolutely perfect weather that we had, we were 14% over our revenue budget, which is tremendous. Probably one of the best Januaries we've ever accomplished altogether. We've started hosting some of our first-time tournament events, which is a big plus considering what has happened with all the COVID and the restrictions. And currently, we're in January, we're about 8% ahead in terms of our fiscal year itself, in terms of revenues. Merchandise sales were increased by 80%, and our EBITDA is improved by almost 60% for the month itself. On one of the round segmentations that we do, what we're trying to break down, as you can probably see, in the course of January, we had 1,700 Port Orange residents. And the year prior, we had 900, which means that the people of Port Orange are definitely using the golf course now. It's been the course has been in tremendous condition, so we're getting a lot more regular play, both from Port Orange, but as well as the Florida residents as well too. One of the things that I'm most proud of is definitely our true review summaries, which we track. Last year we were an 8.9, and this year overall is 9.4. Course ratings definitely have gone up, and our NPS scores, which is basically telling us how we do on an overall basis, have been really have risen as well. A couple of the ways that we do track as well for our true for summaries and combinations for how we do as a golf course. We also use this True Review, which is a Kemper process, but we also use Golf Now, and they do a program where, in this case here, over 460 reviews, average score of 4.1 off of 5, and 93% recommended to go to golf to Cypress Head. Our superintendent has done a tremendous job. Darren Bacchia, I just need to say him on record as well. He has been a great change for the golf course itself. He has really controlled the weed outbreak. He's made our putting greens spectacular, and I'm proud to say that as far as I'm concerned, I've played a lot of different courses in Volusia County, and right now I would put us against anybody. We are in the best condition ever, which I'm really happy about. We did start to see an increase in tournament inquiries. Organizers are definitely starting to get a handle on the whole COVID process. Last year, certainly a lot of tournament events did cancel or try to reschedule. So now in the month of April, May, June, people are starting to come. And as we see, I think most of Reggie Hunter has been almost marketing, I think September, October, and November are almost completely full as far as tournament events on weekends. So people are starting to come back and play, which is great. Actually, they've always been playing golf, which has been even better, but conditions have been tremendous. The month of February, we missed the budget by 1%, which I forgot that we actually only had 28 days instead of 29, so we would have made it if we had that extra day. Surprisingly enough, the weather for us, perfect as it was in January, which is incredible sunshine, we had a tremendous amount of frost in the beginning of February. Hard to imagine or remember, but we had a lot of frost and some rain, which definitely affected it. So we are definitely aware of how the weather affects everybody coming out. If it's blue sky, I can't tell you how many phone calls we get from just let's go out and play golf. So we've been very active with our programs for both beginners, advanced, juniors. We're seeing a tremendous amount more junior play out. Moms and dads are bringing their kids out because I guess they want to get them away from the video terminals from that point of view. So it's been a big asset, and they're starting to really enjoy the process. And again, that will be our future. We need to get them all engaged as far as for the golf aspect itself. Same thing in terms of the round segmentation. You'll see the big change in terms of February. Again, almost 1,500 rounds for Port Orange residents as compared to almost 800 from the year before. So again, all the Port Orange residents, I believe, now know that we have a tremendous golf course and they're coming out to use it. So it's been a big benefit. The good news is the February is actually our fifth month fiscal year, and again we're ahead of revenues by over 6%. And the good news is our pro shop revenues are higher, our range revenues are higher. The good news is our payroll is lower by us controlling our labor cost, but also our expenses are lower too to the budget. So good combination between increased revenues and decreased expenses, which is a great avenue for business. Other than that, it's been tremendous. We've gotten, again, 93% recommendations. I do have to say one thing. One of the, both Sue Lavallo, who's kind of taken over, I know, the assistant manager, but Peter Ferreira and Kevin Sweat from the Parks and Rec have been tremendous. They've been out to the course on a real regular basis. Any questions that we have, we've been able to work with them, and Peter has been tremendous about getting anything that we need to get going properly done. So I really have to hand it to Parks and Rec for what they've done for us or helping us out. Other than that, I'm happy.
All right. Well, it doesn't hurt when the course is in great shape.
Yeah,
It doesn't hurt when the financials are in great shape, and the two seem to come together.
it does.
Questions, Scott?
No, I got to play the course recently, and I would agree it's in really, really good shape. And I played on wasn't a great weather day, but we got out there and had a great time, and the course is really good shape. And there was actually quite a few people who've been out there playing on a not so perfect day, so
Right.
it's good to see.
Maybe we should play it on May 1st.
That'll
Well,
be happening.
they're still trying to fill the divots that his crew left, but I know you got the right crew to do that, so it's all good. I appreciate you coming and
Nothing
giving
a
the
truckload of
update.
sand can't fix.
There you go, exactly.
You good?
Yeah, good. Thanks.
Jonathan?
Nothing.
Chase?
Yeah, quick question. Spoke to first of all, great report.
Thank you.
Good to hear all that, and great to hear all the great comments. I've had no calls, and no calls are very good. Although I did get one conversation with a gentleman. Here's the question. He tried to reserve a tee time for Saturday morning,
Okay.
and he was advised, we don't have anything. How about next Saturday? We don't have anything. How about next Saturday? We don't have anything, and so forth. And then the response is that, well, we've got tournaments, or correct me if I'm wrong, a coaches league. I'm not sure what it is. How are we going to balance that? I understand we need the revenue, we need the people playing that course, but if I have a Port Orange taxpayer where he works 9 to 5 throughout the week, they go to church on Sunday morning, his only time to utilize that course that he is a paying member of as a taxpayer is a Saturday morning. Are we to tell him that there's no options for him?
That's not true on.
How do we get out?
That's
Get
not
around
true on almost every Saturday. We do have some regular leagues that play, and those leagues are open to anybody. So should he want to play or whatever, he can come out and play. So there's a time set that's across for that point itself. We do have a lot of tournaments at this point that have started out. So for the most part, it does take up a lot of time. The good news about that aspect is that's revenue that's guaranteed. So they are guaranteed to pay whether or not it's raining or there's effect or whatever the case may be. They are responsible for playing.
And I understand that because I know we need the revenue, but
Yeah.
at the same time, is there any option that we have, because this is also guaranteed that he is already paying
Yep.
taxes for the use of that and not getting that opportunity. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't want to tell him, sorry, pal.
No,
But I don't know. You tell
And
me.
I agree. Certainly, it's more difficult. Saturday seems to be probably the one day that we do have the most compacted group. Every other day is pretty good. We can get almost anybody out there. We open our tee times like 7 days in advance, so that makes it a little bit more challenging. There's some people that book online as well. I would recommend maybe if he actually wants to reach out to me, I'd love to be able to help him, either introduce him or maybe figure out some way that we can get some of the people in that spot itself. Saturday mornings are probably the biggest requested day.
And I didn't expect an answer to it, and I don't know if there is a resolution to it, but I just wanted to bring it to the attention that we do
Sure.
have some folks out there that try to figure out something.
I
And
do.
I'll send the gentleman to you.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work.
Can I make a plug for the mayor's event in June? Because
Hey,
we're
we're gonna
looking
do
for
that.
players in June on Father's Day weekend.
What's the date on that?
This would be
Whatever
easier to get
Father's
out
Day
for that.
weekend, I want to say, there we go.
19th, yeah.
It sounds like you just did make a plug for it.
There we go.
June 19th.
I better put
Always-
it on my calendar too.
Always looking for participants and players on
Is that a
day.
Saturday?
That is
I'm
a
gonna tell that
Saturday.
guy I can't play. I'll get him on my team.
We're in trouble now.
We can get them to get a foursome up and come join us.
There we go.
For a good cause. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
You and Lance coordinate colors today? Item 8, review of the City of Port Orange pension funds. I guess this is kind of a prelude to items 9A, B, and C, but a lot of meat to it.
Mayor and Council, it's Scott Niels, excuse me, Director of Finance and CFO. It's my pleasure to be with you tonight to kind of set the stage for the three people that will be coming up after me. What I have for you tonight is kind of a summary of all of the three pension plans. Councilman Stiltner requested this a while back, and it hadn't been done since I think 2017 when Tracy was here, so it was a good time to do that. So the first thing I have is, is a comparison of the administrative costs of each of the individual plans. You can see there is a fair amount of variation there, and I will leave that to you to question the individual plan administrators for things that they may be able to do to adjust those costs. Excuse me. One thing you will notice is that the total administrative services is about $93,000. I know that was a question that Councilman Stiltner asked. Variations for the custodial banking, attorney fees, particularly high in the police department, which is something you might expect given the nature of their job. Investment consultants is fairly widespread there. So total cost together for all three plants is $448,500 for this last year. As far as looking at planned assets, one thing I notice on this is that all of the plans are moving forward. The police seems to be having the greatest increase, which is commendable. But all of the pension plans are showing increased asset valuation. And I'm looking through their presentations, and mine, I've got a slide too that shows the returns in the last 5 years have been very good overall. One thing that's very important is looking at the funded percentage. Again, it's an upward trend for all of the plans. Particularly notable is the fire has come from, if you look at their history, and there is a slide that they have there, it's coming from a very low, I think it was 48%, up now to 60 or almost 70%. That's a remarkable change. As far as the rates of return, the assumed rate of return is an item that I think each of the plans will address. There's a lot of question now, and particularly on the general fund, Dave has provided a chart that shows and an analysis that many of the investment advisors are saying that the long-term returns will be lower than what we've seen in the past. And so they're recommending to reduce the assumed rate of return so that the pension plan will be more aligned to what the actual returns may be. You can see that each of the plans has reduced their assumed rate of return over the last few years, with the general employee pension fund the lowest at 6 3/4, and the other two slightly over 7%. Again, the returns have shown a general upward trend. There'd be some question of whether or not that will continue in the next out years, or whether the short term or the long term. And that's a decision that each of the pension plans will need to make along with their investment advisors. But for this last year, about 9% is a very good return. As you can see on the slide before, that's above what their assumed rate of return was. So the portfolios are showing very good returns. As far as the recommended contribution as a percent of payroll, that is a function of the actuarial value of the plan and what the assumed rate of compensation increase will be. And I'm not an actuary, and I don't profess to know how all that's done, but they do a very good job. So if you look at the general employee one, it's at 21% of compensation, 65.5% for the police, and 72.8% for the fire. This is one that always raises a lot of question. I put a definition here. The unfunded actuarial accrued liability means the total current and expected future benefit obligations reduced by the sum of the actuarial value of the assets and the present value of future normal costs. So as we go through to the next slide, you can see how that ties in. The unfunded actuarial accrued liability for each of the plans is shown here as a stacked bar with approximately $32 million total for all three plans, the largest being the fire, followed by the police, and then by the general employee pension. Looking at the accrued liability, you can see that it's declining quite well, which ties back in with the increase in the pension assets and valuation. An excellent trend there for all of them. Oh, I can't remember which way this thing goes. In the last parts I have here are total pension plan participants. In the general employee, there's 208 participants, 141 in the police, and 120 in the fire. Active participations about the same on the general employee and police, and 57 in the fire. And as a percentage, you can see the active participants as a percent of total, 53 for the police, 47 for the fire, and 38 for the general employee. One of the things to note is that the general employee ones is a closed plan. And as the more retire, there'll be less dollars going into the pension plan. So as the member of the board, we take a look at that very carefully to see what those future requirements are going to be, knowing that we're going to have fewer contributions in the future. So in the long term, that should all work out if we have the plan properly structured with the right rate of return and the proper investments. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, but the individual plan administrators or actuarials will present their individual plans next.
Questions, council? Anyone? Scott, thank you for that. Do me a favor if you would.
Yes, sir.
I know this came as part of the agenda packet, but could you just send that to us individually, your PowerPoint presentation?
Sure, yeah,
I'd
we do.
appreciate that, just so that I can access it more easily, because, okay, maybe, I don't want to use the word fun, but I actually enjoyed reading that Sunday night. That was
There
part of
are
my
a
Sunday
few
night
weird
reading.
ones like we are.
Yeah, and that, I just want to be able to access it easily.
sir.
to compare. Thank you for that.
Anything else? Thank you.
Good job. Item 9, presentation of annual reports for pension plans. Item A is Port Orange Police. You're up first.
You already know where it is.
Unless you put something different up.
Nope.
That one?
Perfect.
And then.
Gotcha. All right, so my name's Chad Little. You've all met me before at some point. So I'm the actuary.
It's been
for
a
the-
while since we've done it live.
It
but
has been a while, that is true. So I'm the actuary for the police plan. I'll put together a brief presentation here, and I'm actually kind of lucky that I got to go first so I can paint this picture real quick. So the image that I put in here, the slide you see here, the circle represents the present value of benefits, which Dr. Nils talked about a minute ago, is that total liability of everything we're going to have to pay out of the plan. We can overlay the assets on that. First thing we do is we split that into time, everything in the past and everything in the future. So the top half of that is everything that happened in the past. The bottom is the future. That's your active employees adding another year of service, getting closer to retirement. When we look at the piece in the past, we overlay the assets, and that's where we get that unfunded liability that he was talking about. It's a comparison of how much liability we've built up so far versus how many assets we've built up so far, and the difference between those two is the unfunded. And so when we talk about the required contributions, made up of two pieces. One is that contribution for everybody adding another year of service and getting closer to retirement. And the other piece is a mortgage payment on whatever that gap is between assets and liabilities to eventually close it towards 100%. That's ultimately the goal. So that's to give you an idea of why this unfunded is so important. A piece of your contribution is affected by whatever that unfunded liability would be. So we didn't give a presentation to you last year, so going back a number of years, I didn't do that. I'm only talking to you about what changed this year in the valuation. So first of all, the board lowered the net assumed rate of return from 7.25 down to 7.15. You could see on the graph that he put up, it's really a nice illustration that all three plans have been continuously, diligently lowering that assumed rate of return to something that's more realistic. This year, we had to go to the public sector mortality tables that FRS uses. That's a state law. You have to, whatever they have used in their last two valuations, you have to use as a plan.
Mm-hmm.
So we adopted that. The good thing is, with it being a public sector mortality table, it's geared towards the people that are actually in the plan. It's based on, it's a matching population, something that makes more sense for our population that we're valuing liability for. And then the other change that's in there, a few years back we did an experience review, and as part of that we really needed to lower termination. We didn't have termination as high as we had had in the past. Officers were not leaving at the same rates as they were. When that change was put in place, it was fairly substantial to lower that termination. And the board decided, rather than put it all in at once and spike the contribution up, we would phase it in over 3 years. And so that's what we worked with them on, and we came up with a way to phase that in over a few years. This year's the last year of that phase in, so that termination is now at that new, lower, more conservative rate. So all three of those are the main changes that were in the assumptions this year. This is a longer graph of what Dr. Nilsson put up. The 2006 that's actually the first year that we got here. And the first thing we did was lower the assumed rate of return. I actually think it was at 8.5 before that. I think in 2006 it went to 8. So that immediately lowered your funded percentage all the way down to 43%. So you can see now from 43% to 82% has been a substantial rise over that period of time. That's made up of a combination of the city diligently making its contribution every year, the changes that were made to the plan back in 2013, and then the steps that the board has taken over the years to adjust things. I know there was discussion on the administrative expenses earlier. The board in the last few years in changing their investment consultant, basically, I don't remember the exact number, but I think basically cut their investment expenses in half, but then on top of that, in my opinion, more importantly, improved their returns every year since then, above what their peers are making. So it's been a great move for them. So ultimately now we're up to that 82%, a much nicer funded percentage than where we were back in 2006. And what you see on this exhibit here are essentially the valuation results. So when we did the previous valuation, it provides a contribution for the year following. So if you think about it, we're presenting valuation results in February. Board tends to adopt it in the February meeting. Then if finance is having budget hearings or whatever in April, May, something like that, they already know what their number's going to be for the following year, and it's not going to change unless the state money changes. So this provides the number. So in the previous valuation, the estimated required contribution had been 2.7 million. That's now down to under 2.5 million. So it's another reduction this year. We've had several reductions over the last several years. And you can see the unfunded liability decreased from 13 million down to 10 million. And that funded percentage then improved from 76% to just under 82%, as we showed on the other page there. And on the assumptions that are shown there at the bottom, you can see the assumed rate of return is now down to 7.15%. So that's the simple, fast version of this. I know you got 3 of these, so I'm really here to answer if you happen to have any questions.
Council?
Chad, as we're trending in this direction, with the assumed rate of returns coming down to where we all agree would be a much more realistic level, maintaining some of the other decisions that are being made by the money managers and the advisors, do we forecast to see the gap, which was great on one of your slides there, between the liability and the assets? You can kind of see it's starting to, they're getting closer together.
Yep.
As they're all both trending in the right direction. Do we forecast that to continue to improve that way?
Yes, I do. And the reasons for that, the funding of the plan, it's our payment of the unfunded only uses a 1% payroll growth, so that's a very low number. So we're paying off more of the unfunded every year when the city makes its contribution. So that gap continues to close. I don't expect it to get to 100% anytime soon, because it's 2 moving pieces. It's the comparison between the liability, which changes in ways we don't expect, because, as an example, this year pay went up less than anticipated, so the liability didn't grow as much. So those kind of things change. And then on the asset side, it's not ever going to earn exactly what we had assumed. So you're never really going to be at 100%, but you're going to be near that as we continue to head down this path.
Yeah, and I think, it wasn't all that long ago, 6 years ago, where I think the council, we were looking at this thing holistically for all of the plans, and I don't know that any of us had a number in our minds where we thought, let's just try to get to there for now. And I think that number ended up being about 80%. And
That was the number.
Funded. That was our number. We kind of felt like if we get on the other side of 80 and then maintain that, we would be in a territory we'd be a lot more comfortable and be able to hopefully guard against some of the lessons of long ago.
Well, and realize that as you've gotten towards this 80%, you've done it while tightening assumptions. Mm-hmm. We have a more conservative mortality table. We have a more conservative assumed rate of return, which is going to continue to get lower going forward. The plans are just in better shape than they ever were.
Yeah. Good. That's all I got.
Yeah, that was going to be my one question. You pretty much addressed it. What would you recommend moving forward? Obviously, you would hope for a robust market, but I think the biggest thing is to keep bumping that down in those, 1 basis point or whatever.
The 10 basis points.
Or 10 basis points, lower than that to get it down ultimately somewhere in the sixes, we would hope that, that what would be easier to achieve.
Yeah, right now FRS is at 7.
Okay.
And they ran their GASB liabilities, which is their more realistic number.
Yeah.
At 6.8.
Okay.
6.8, I believe, is what their investment consultant said is based on their mix and their investments,
Okay.
is their long-term expectation. For us, I believe that's high. I think it does need to be less than that. I think our
Okay.
long-term number needs to be less than
at
whatever.
at some number less than 6 3/4,
Yes,
basically. Okay.
yes, and right now, if you look at the capital market assumptions for whether you use BlackRock or Morgan Stanley or whoever you want to use for looking at, or JP Morgan's probably the industry standard. I mean, if you look at JP Morgan's 10 to 15 year numbers, there's not an asset category that has 7% on it, except maybe emerging markets, right? Nothing long-term is expected to
Nothing,
make
yeah.
any of this.
Okay.
And, you look at our recent history and the returns that he just threw up there, it's like, well, things are going great. Well, that's why. Because it can't continue that way. There has to be a mean reversion. At some point it's going to
Sure.
adjust the other way. So I applaud all three boards on continuing to move that assumption down to something more conservative, so that when it does happen, it's less of a blow.
Gradually, of course.
Gradually.
Yeah, that like I said, that 10 basis points eases the burden, because every time that happens, of course, the city's responsibility goes up a little bit.
Yes.
And, then everybody's happy, of course, when you see 9%, 10, 11, because you're exceeding that number, and that makes everybody happy.
And fortunately, over the last several years, it has come at a time where there have been good returns. At the same time, we're lowering the assumed rate. The two tend to offset each other.
Yeah.
We haven't seen the increase in contribution for lowering that return.
Which is another good thing. So really, it's good news for all three plans currently, and hopefully we just pray that it continues.
Yeah.
Well, from my part too, I'd like to see that continual gradual trend. The number that I've been looking at too is our percentage of payroll, because that was dangerously bad 10 years ago.
And
We're
is much
pushing 100% on this one. We were over 100% on the fire plan. And in 2011, when I came on, we were at 88.5% of payroll, and now the contribution's down to 69%, which is a significant move. I'd still like to see that go considerably lower,
Sure.
but that has a tremendous impact on our general fund every year, and our ability to take those tax dollars and not tie them up. So seeing that payroll contribution number come down bit by bit every year and heading in the right direction trend, that's of vital importance because of how that affects everything else we do in the city as well.
Yep.
We're not paying dollars in the pensions, we have dollars for salaries. I mean, it's as simple as that. Gentlemen? Chase? Jonathan?
Just out of curiosity, you said that you won't really get to 100%. You start getting up in the high 90s if all goes well. So then I'm assuming once you get 100%, you can't go over that, especially that once you're fully funded, like you even if the investments continue to outperform, you wouldn't see anything north of 100.
So you would. So
what would occur in that instance is where I'm
Right,
getting.
so that's a great question. So what happens is, let's say, just as for argument's sake, it's the unfunded liability in this plan is about $10 million. So let's say that City of Port Orange decided to, bond rates are low, you decided to float a bond, get $10 million, put it in the plan, now we're 100% funded. The next day the market moves. If the market moves positive and in a way that is above what we assumed it was going to move, which in this case is 7.15, then you end up with more assets than liability you've accrued so far, and you would be over 100% funded. Now, when I showed on the early slide, when I showed the required contribution, how it's derived, it's the regular cost of everybody adding another year, but then we've got this mortgage payment. Well, what happens to that mortgage payment when the number's negative? Well, in the rest of the world, it's an offset to the required contribution. But in the state of Florida, there was a law passed in the last decade or so that said you can't do that.
Okay.
So if you get over 100% funded, you don't get any cookie back.
Right.
You're still going to have to put the normal cost in. So you can get to 100%, and I actually have a couple of plans now that have gotten there and gotten above 100%, and so their contribution is really just that normal cost. So yeah, we'll eventually get there, and all of these methods that all the actuaries are using are designed to reach 100%.
Right.
They're all targeted there. I'm just saying, eventually, you know, the way we're going right now, everything is set up to reach 100%, but every year we're lowering the assumed rate. We're moving the bar every year.
Right.
Mortality's getting better, and interest rate, we're lowering that assumed rate of return. We keep moving the bar, and so it's going to be a long time before we approach that 100%. I mean, I say that we could have some tremendous market years, and immediately we'll get there.
Well, I appreciate just the expanding on that, so thank
Sure,
you.
no problem.
Talk about being able to reduce that contribution going into payroll every year, the dollars we put right back in the general fund, tax relief, things like that.
So yeah, and actually it would be an interesting exercise when you're talking about this required contribution. It's the two pieces, the normal cost and that mortgage payment. If you look in all three plans, I'm willing to bet, and I don't work on the other two plans, that the majority of the requirement that you're having to put in is the mortgage payment to pay down the unfunded. Certainly that's been that way in our plan, and it's probably that way in fire. I don't know about general. Imagine when you hire a new employee. When you hire a new employee, all there is the normal cost. They don't have any liability. And if everything happens the way we assumed, all you'll ever put in is the normal cost. So that's what makes that decision on hiring or whatever is not the 60-something% of pay. It's whatever percentage of pay that normal cost is. That's what we should expect to have to pay over this member's lifetime if all assumptions are realized and their pay grows the way we expect and everything else. And I bring that up because at some point, you may be aware of the current legislation that is pending to potentially close the general employees out of FRS and just give them a savings account. If that happens, I've already had one of our clients come to us and say, hey, can we reopen this plan if that happens? Because it's going to make it more challenging on hiring new employees because they don't have any retirement. All they've got is this whatever savings accounts provided through FRS. So I personally, I hope that law does not go through. But if it does, when you're thinking about that new employee in your general plan, remember it would only be whatever the normal cost would be for an employee over their career. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, appreciate it. Good to
All
see
right.
you.
No problem. Thank you for your time.
Chad, good to see you.
9B, Port Orange Fire.
Stage has been set well tonight. My gosh. You guys are already primed for another actuary. I promise I'll make it quick and hopefully painless.
I heard painless from an actuary.
Yeah, I know. It's
We used
right
to
here
make
the-
Chad go last and he'd get up and say what they said.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Chad did a great job. He's a good educator, and he works with PPTA, and his classes are well attended. So, okay, so I have about the same number of slides as police. It should be pretty quick because a lot of it's duplicate information. So, should be good stuff tonight. So, I am the actuary for the fire pension plan. So this is solely for the firefighters.
Can you do me a favor, just say your name for the record?
Yes, it's Doug Lozen, Lozen.
Thank you.
With Foster & Foster.
Made Robin happy.
Yes, ma'am. Just a partial history over about the last 10 fiscal years on market performance for the fire pension plan. It's kind of colorful here. The actual return is yellow. Okay, so those are the actual year-over-year net of fees returns. The green is the assumption, so you can see we had been scaling down the assumption, and as you know, it was close to about 8.5 even 10 years ago. We're now down to 7.35, and we actually have a study to present to the firefighters to see what it would look like for funding if they went down to 7. And we're full agreement. The trend is downwards, and I personally don't want any of my plans to be much north of where FRS is. For my own reasons, the lawmakers linked one of the two most important assumptions for defined benefit plans like Port Orange to FRS, and that was mortality about 5 years ago. Well, if they can do it with mortality, in my mind, they could do it with investment return. So I don't want my plans sitting way north of FRS because the lawmakers could introduce a bill and say guess what? FRS is now 6.5, and so is everybody else.
Sure.
Completely just me running out scenarios as an actuary, but it's easy to believe something can happen again if it's happened before. So anyways, here's the partial history for fire. Market yellow. The blue is the smooth return. We use a 4-year smoothing to help reduce volatility. So of the last 11 fiscal years, 7 of those 11, the market performance exceeded the assumption. So just tags on some of the information you've seen tonight. There's been very good performance since we hit rock bottom in the fall of 2008 in the markets. Here is the decrease again in the investment return assumption. Going back to 2010, it was up to 8.5, and we're now down at 7.35. And again, I'm going to be recommending that we're still glide pathing down over the next couple of years. Funded ratio history. This is exactly what makes actuaries happy. Often we get a question, what funded status should we be at? What's the magic number? And 80% is thrown out there. And I'm an actuary. I'm not that concerned with an absolute funded status. I'm interested in the trend. And if the trend is slow and steady improvement, that means you've got assumptions that are more or less matching reality. Because as you heard Chad mention, all actuaries are targeting for 100% eventually. You don't want to get there too quickly. That just means you're front-loading the plan unnecessarily. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, you don't want to be going backwards or decreasing for a long period of time when it's not expected. That means something's not matching. Reality and assumptions aren't matching. So here, this is a nice trend. This funded status has been improving while the investment return assumption went from 8.5 to 7.35. So that shows that normally, initially, you tell the city, we need more money. We're lowering the investment assumption. We don't think assets are going to do as much heavy lifting. So city put it in. Well, guess what? Those extra city contributions cranked along with the market as the market went where the Dow was 8,000 up to 30. That's kind of a win-win. Lower the assumption, but still improve the funded ratio. Partial history market. This is actually dollars in the bank. Market assets in 2010, just over 15 million, and now with contributions from members, state and city, along with investment earnings, we're now at over 35 million, and this is after paying out benefits and expenses during that time. So this is more than a doubling of hard dollars in the bank over 10 fiscal years.
Excellent. We're good.
So, quick summary here, net decrease in the unfunded actual accrued liability of 4.87 million since 2010. It's dropped from 21 million to 16.2. Net increase in market value of assets of 20.27 million from 15.3 to 35.6. Net funded ratio improvement 42.1%. Now we're at 68.7.
Outstanding.
Board approved reduction in the investment return assumption. They were making some tough calls, and it's reaped benefits. Lowered from 8.5 to 7.35. We latest experience study performed November of 2019, and continued steady progress in the funded ratios expected. So where I'll finish here is I'll give you kind of a shocking number. You heard Chad say he thinks that the majority, at least for police and fire, of the city cost is due to the mortgage payment, the unfunded. That is true for fire. The shocking number is this. The unfunded liability, as we stand here today, if you meet all the assumptions going forward, will be paid off in 10 years. Let's pretend today that the city, or somebody would stroke a check and write off the unfunded and just deposit it. Now it's $16 million. So it's pay now or pay later. Put in $16 million. Guess what the city's funding requirement would be going forward? For fire, it's right now about 74% of pay. If you could pay off the unfunded right now with a check, the city's requirement would be 1% of payroll. So the 74% is not a forever number. Again, I don't have the crystal ball, which is why the actuary has to come back every year and tweak the adjustments, tweak assumptions, tweak funding requirements. But if all assumptions are met going forward, the unfunded is on a target. We just consolidated it as a level dollar, so it's the percent of pay is going to help pay it down faster. 10 years paid off, the city's requirement over that time should gradually drop from 74% of payroll to 1% of payroll.
Love it if that trend held. Of course, I remember, 8 years ago roughly, we were actually paying more to pensions than we were in salary. I think we were around 120%. We were paying more to fund this than we were into the actual employee salaries. Talk about the ability to invest, take that money, instead of paying towards a mortgage, invest in capital improvements, invest in our people. There it is right there. There's our ability to do it.
So
Hope I didn't steal your thunder.
No, this is all good. Very good discussion tonight. I think by the time you see the last actuary, you'll get some continuing ed credits here. I think you're going to walk away talking like actuary, so don't do it outside this room. It's
If we keep this up, some future council's really going to love us.
yeah, there you go. So that is it. I'm here to answer questions if you have them for fire.
Questions for Doug? Anyone? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
I was just gonna say, you know, kind of the same thing, moving forward, and you already addressed it. Chip away
Yeah.
at that assumed rate and hope for good market performance and, you know, the salary projections and the raises and things, and all that's a piece of that pie, but if we can continue that trend, that's gonna make a lot of people happy. So, we got a 10-year trend going pretty strong. Let's push it out another 10 and see where we're at.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good seeing you all.
9C, General Employee Pension Fund. I saw Dave, there he is. Actuary Rowe.
Yeah, Actuary Rowe. If there was any thunder I had, it's pretty well gone, but we'll see what we can do.
Well, it reassures us when all three of you independently are on the same page.
Sure.
It really does.
This
For the
clicks
most
forward.
part.
Okey-dokey. Well, I'm Dave Leonard. I'm the actuary for the General Employees Plan, and the General Employees Plan has a few different challenges than the other two plans because it is a closed plan. One of the things they were mentioning is the mortgage payment, and right now we're at about 50-50. About half the contribution is from the normal cost and about half is from the amortization. But our normal cost is going down, and it's going to continue to go down as our membership goes down. Let's see. And I've got some of the same kind of slides, and we'll try and get through them pretty quickly. Funded ratio about 87% as of the beginning of the year. Right now, 5 months into the year, that $34 million of assets is up to about $39 million. We were at a little over 13% at the end of February, and I double-checked the asset values for the funds that I have direct access to the other day, and they were up another $600,000 in March through April 5th. So if this holds, you know, it's going to be a real happy valuation next year too. The projected contribution rates, or the recommended contribution rates, I should say, have decreased in the last valuation from 22.8 to 21.7, which is the first decrease we've seen in a little while, and it was the result of again strong asset performance. We were at 6.75% for both the 19 and the 20 valuation as an assumption. So we didn't have that bump in liabilities that you do get when you reduce your assumption. And this is just the graph you've seen twice already on a different perspective, showing the increase in liabilities. The dark blue line's the liabilities, the gray line's the assets, and the little thin blue line is the funded ratio. We've reduced the interest rate as well from 7.5% several years ago to 6.75 now. So that kind of hinders the increase in the funded level. This chart shows the contributions and the benefit payment history, and we're looking at the employee contribution again, is a shrinking part. That's the blue part of the contributions. It's a shrinking part because the active employees are getting smaller and smaller. And but the city's contribution is going down too. Again, as a percentage of payroll, the goal is to kind of try and keep it constant, which is going to be tough to do if conditions, the assets and mortality and those things like that don't cooperate, because all that liability is going to go towards the unfunded. Right now, we're dealing with a negative net cash flow year to year, again because of the more retirees and less actives. It's been about $1.5 million on an annual basis. This year, I think it'll be a little over $1.5 million. So again, that's why we have a trust fund, and it's pretty well funded at the moment. The next slide shows the gray bars are the decrease in the active participants, and the blue bars are the increase in retirees. The yellow line represents our salary base, which again is shrinking. Our total only went down 2. The total number of participants went down 2 last year, but the actives went down 6. And that's just the trend. We'll be dealing with that. This slide shows the investment performance, and the yellow line is the one that I like to look at. That is the smooth assets. You heard a little bit about the smooth assets in the fire plan. We use a 5-year smoothing rather than a 4-year smoothing, and it's consistently beat the assumed rate the last few years. And when that happens, what happens is you build up a surplus, basically, of unrecognized assets, asset gains. So we have a pretty nice surplus too. So if this year works out well, we should see that continuing trend, even if the market has a bad year, that it won't really impact the contribution calculation too much. The last 3 years, the valuation asset yield, you can see here, have been 9.3, 8.6, and 8.1 in years where the market bobbed around from 12.2 down to 3.4 and then up to 8.7. And again, 2021 is looking great so far. And just a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year composite return, 3 years is 8.04. We stretch all the way out to 10 years, it's 8.62. And again, if only the future capital market assumptions that we have to deal with were that rosy, we could assume 8% and your contribution would be really, really low. That's it. How do I get that PDF up there that can you bring it up for me?
This one?
No, that's not what I said, is it? Yeah, this one. This is a cool little thing that I saw. If you can see it, if you can get the chart up there. This is a kind of a survey of 130 pension plans, all municipal pension plans, and it tracks from 2000 to 2020 what the assumed rates were. And if you go all the way to 2020 on the right, the little red box there at the bottom, those are plans that are still assuming under 7%. You can see it's about 20% of the total. The median was 7.23. So your other 2 plans are hanging out at the median and coming down, which is good. And there's still some plans, and I was looking through the state of Florida list of municipalities. There's still some plans that are upper 7s, even to 8%, which is, in these markets, crazy. The General Employees Board is looking at perhaps reducing the rate to 6.5. We're going to be discussing it again at the next meeting. We did a study of reducing it all the way to 6, and it was pretty cost prohibitive, even if we phased it in. So with the fund doing well, I don't think there's going to be any major changes. And my thought is, as well as it's doing, if we can just hold steady the rest of the year, we move to 6.5, you probably won't see much of a bump in the contribution rate because the trust assets will offset that. I was asked to talk a little bit about the mortality tables. I don't know if you really want to hear much about it after all that you've heard so far. But one thing I can say is that I don't think the mortality assumption is as major a deal as interest rates and salary assumptions, because all the different tables that we use, if they're up-to-date tables, they're all pretty close. When we switched over to the Pub 10, which is the FRS table, it was about a 1% increase in salary for the contribution, about $34,000. So it wasn't that big a deal. They're included in the mortality these days. There's what they call mortality projections, generational mortality projections, where they're saying that somebody who's 65 30 years from now is going to live longer than somebody that's 65 now. So let's, since we have a 35-year-old in the plan, let's see what his mortality will be when he retires in 30 years. And that's something that adds to your liability because we're saying people are living longer. The people that put out these tables and studies, the Society of Actuaries, since they started doing it in 2014, every year they come out with a new table. Every year that projection has been a little less and less. So, they made the actuaries who use the tables overestimate liabilities. It's about a 2% difference in the liabilities from using the 14 table to using the 2020 table. So nobody really knows. In a plan as relatively small as Port Orange's, the mortality isn't going to follow a table exactly. You have 105 retirees. If 3 of them die, all of a sudden you have an actuarial gain that's going to lower your cost because it's that big of an impact, especially if they're, retirees with fairly substantial benefits. We had one of those happen last year, and it was about a $300,000 gain. So that helped reduce the contribution. Not that we're wishing anybody, to die. Another thing, just before I get off the subject of mortality, I saw a study about the effects of COVID. And last year, the mortality in the U.S. was 17% higher than expected. But the people who do these projections say it's really not going to impact the projections. Future projections are going to continue. They're just kind of take a time out for a couple of years. Nobody knows.
Time out.
I think if you live through COVID, your mortality chances are probably better. You're going to live longer if you live through it,
Interesting. Guess there's one way to find out, right?
We're all going to have to keep living.
That's right.
That's the thing. Get rid of
Dave,
these things.
thanks a lot. Anybody
You're
got
welcome.
questions?
Dave,
Okay.
real quick, and you kind of touched on it, and if Chad and Doug want to get up and chime back in on this too, that's fine, but talk to us briefly about timing with respect to moving down those assumed rate of returns and during really good market years versus not so good market years. I guess what I'm getting at is when the market's doing really well, is it in our better interest from a financial perspective to be more aggressive in moving it down at the same time, or not look at it that way? I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to get into a smoke and mirrors kind of thing.
Right.
I definitely want to continue to trend the way we are, but I know you kind of touched on it.
It's a tough balance, and I think these guys will agree. We're supposed to come up with an assumption kind of in a vacuum from these other factors. We're supposed to look at the capital market assumptions, and really it's the board, coming to us with an assumption recommendation. So while it's very practical to do it when the market's doing well, there's no, I don't know exactly how to answer the question because it's nice that as I said, we're going to hopefully move down a quarter point or maybe a little less than that for next year, and we're going to have these nice asset returns to balance that. But even if we didn't, it would probably be a good idea to move it down. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Anything else? Dave, thanks a lot. Appreciate you. Which brings us to the consent agenda portion of the meeting. Need a motion to approve items 12 through 20 on consent?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mayor, did you want to do public comment on the consent?
Maybe I should. I've had a
There you
motion,
go.
a second, and then public comments. See, usually we're doing this about an hour ago, so. Public comments on the consent agenda. Did I see Robert anywhere?
Robert was here
Nope,
earlier.
okay. Anybody want to comment on the consent agenda? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont?
Co-
Councilmember Stiltner?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 4-0.
His vote though, Mayor.
Where did Chase go?
We can't, just, okay.
You need his vote?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
We'll find him. Hold on.
He's in the bathroom.
Somebody take the mic to him.
How's everybody doing? Having a good night?
While we're at it, Drew, you were the motion?
Second.
Need you to vote on the consent agenda. Aye. Did I hear an aye? Make that 5-0. Consent agenda is approved. Citizen agenda participation, item 21, Back the Blue Golf Tournament announcement. See if we can wake you guys up in the corner. Spouse is backing the blue, and you
Yes,
brought
sir.
your spouse. How about that?
I did bring my better half.
You got that right.
No argument.
Oh, don't say too much.
And who are you, sir?
I am Wayne Jean, was passed back in blue. I'm also a Port Orange police officer, so will not be giving my address. And you are?
I'm Brandy Jean.
May the 1st, Spouse Back in Blue is having our second, we're calling it annual, since COVID ruined the second one, golf tournament. We would like to invite everyone out to play some golf. I'm actually currently taking lessons. So if you see me swinging, dunk.
Absolutely.
Hide behind a tree?
Yes. Just so everybody knows, Spouse Back in Blue has this past year been able to do a lot of things, and the golf tournament is how we get the major funding for what we do. We not only support law enforcement, firefighters, evac, all first responders. We also support our community, and this past year was a troubling time for a lot of families. The Port Orange Police Department was very kind to reach out to us and let us help them. They did a Cops for Christmas this past year, and we were able to help supply Christmas trees, decorations, gifts, money for over 80 families. So the golf tournament is the major way we get our money. Any other fundraisers we do, we normally do for a certain cause. You know, we're working on another one. The ladies don't know about it yet. It's a secret. I'm probably going to get in
I don't
trouble.
think it's a secret now.
Yeah, I'll have to explain. But it'll be a good one. So we're just wanting to invite everybody out and have some fun
And you want
watch
to
the mayor.
tell
you
people
know.
about your Facebook page they could go to get more information about this?
Oh yeah, Spouses Back in Blue Facebook page, Instagram. Our Facebook page is Spouses Back in Blue. Our address is on there. My phone number's on there. If you have any questions, you can contact me. I'll be glad to send you to Reggie at Cypress Head for the answers, because I know nothing about golf. And you can also go on our Facebook page and see the work we've been doing, because we're proud of it.
It should be. It's a lot of good stuff.
Yes, sir.
Well, I gotta, Brandy, if you'd step forward, I got something to give you.
You got something to give me?
Yes, I got something to give you. That is a check in my foursome. I will be there. I was there for the first one. It was a fantastic time, a fantastic day. Those 4 people, they got me and 3 others, and none of them sit up here. That way they can all go get their own foursomes and participate.
Say date again.
May the 1st. It's a Saturday, 0800. We're going to be, just tell you a little bit about the pregame show, because I've learned that the pregame show really does matter. when I say first responders and we bring the community together to take out all negative. It will be the Port Orange Police Department Honor Guard joining hands with the Spruce Creek High School JROTC to present the colors. Mr. Blackwell of Atlantic High School has informed me that he will handle the National Guard, the playing of the national anthem, excuse me.
Awesome.
And I'm waiting on a phone call for a couple flyovers during all this. Just, get that pre-game show going.
Saturday
Get you
morning.
amped
They're
up.
close
Make sure.
by. Yep.
We got some prizes. Hole 7, if you get a hole in 1, it's $5,000 prize cash.
Nice.
There's other par 3 holes where there's a $500 Visa gift card, a 50-inch TV, and a set of iron clubs. If you hit hole in 1s there too.
Did you get a prize for highest score? Get anything like that?
The last one.
That's what I'm used to
You
getting.
get to sign up for lessons.
Yeah, the last one we got. I finished last place. Like I said, I'm not a player yet.
That's only because I wasn't playing, you finished last.
I got some putt-putt golf tickets. So
That's great.
we are actually working on
That's
getting
cool.
a first, second, third place plaques made for the event. It'll be fun. There's going to be some volunteers from Spruce Creek High School students also there throughout the day, sitting there volunteering and helping to get their volunteer hours. So it's, like I said, it's bringing the community together and the first responders together to keep everything positive and us all working together like we should.
And you're guaranteeing great weather.
I'll leave that one up to God.
There you go. Any other questions for Officer Jean?
We gonna get to hear from her?
No,
She's got to be the one calling the shots. So I don't have any other questions. I just did want to comment real quick. First of all, what you guys were able to do through the COVID period of time and getting around the holidays was pretty much nothing short of remarkable. I mean, I know there were some kids out there that didn't have beds, and you guys had a hand in making that happen too, and that is just amazing. I will also note that if you can't remember anything you heard here about where to go on the Facebook page, all you gotta do is go to the Cypress Head website.
Yes.
The Cypress Head Golf actually makes it super easy. You can go right on the Cypress Head Golf Course website. You can find the tournament. You can click on right there, and you can register your team. And I can assure you the mayor's team will have competition.
That's right.
We'll just leave it at
There's at
leave it at that for
there.
right now.
And Mayor, did you go on Cypress Head and register?
No.
No?
No, that's what she's going to do
That's
for
what
us.
I'll do for you
There
then.
you go.
Okay. You got my back then.
Because I'll mess it up, I promise you.
Okay.
Well, it's a good thing you got her then.
Well, the big thing is you got the check, so
That's right.
that's all right.
Thank you. Thank you. again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Mayor.
y'all for y'all
See you.
support.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Absolutely.
See you May
Appreciate
1st.
it.
Mayor, may I ask a question?
You may ask.
All right, Officer Jean, if I don't play golf, but I am interested in supporting the cause, how would I go about that?
The address for Spices Back in Blue is on Facebook.
Okay, thank you.
And like I said. Oh, she should, yes. I agree.
See, gotta get those plugs in, so, thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Y'all have a blessed day.
You too.
Gigi.
Citizen participation non-agended, Mr. Robert Reinhagen. Hey, Robert.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive North, Port Orange. I want to talk about the record service again. In the statement of work in the request for proposal, it has a paragraph, paragraph 10 on page 20 about non-exclusivity. And this provides that the owner or person in possession of the disabled vehicle shall have the opportunity of contacting a wrecker or tower company of his or her own choice to a location other than the storage facility of the towing company. And so you have to ask yourself, why would anybody permit their vehicle to go to the impound lot rather than going to your local mechanic or to your dealer or even to your own driveway. And as I think about it, I think, well, it's somebody that has suffered a traumatic emotional event, a physical trauma, or perhaps even death. So here's people and their families who are especially vulnerable. And what we're doing is letting the towing company take their car away and not really providing them with the backup or support so they can get that vehicle back. So, in the scope of work, it provides that this is the service they provide, the towing company provides, is at no cost to the city. And yet, it provides that they provide this. The towing company can provide temporary storage at no cost to the police, city, and fire department. Vehicles that are towed to the impound yard that are held for evidence. All other city lease and owned disabled vehicles from point of disability, 50 miles from the city, at no cost to the city. In addition, the towing company shall change the flat tires of any city vehicle, and that's within Volusia County at no charge. And they have to promptly clean all debris at any accident site. And yet, for this privilege to service the city, they have to pay $500 a month. So there's just something really, really wrong with this whole thing. I think we have to really rethink it all. And I'm out of time. And I thank you very much.
Thanks, Robert. And Kat Atwood. You got your seat back.
See, I could have gone back. Kat Atwood, 872 Sugar Grove Court, Port Orange. Two things I'd like to discuss tonight. So first, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you and the council. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for the transparency you provided to the citizens of Port Orange while you're in the selection process for the new city manager. You not only provided the names to us, but you gave us ample time to do our research and have our facts together so that by the time that we were invited to attend your social, we were able to hold conversations with them and ask questions of the candidates from some of the research that we did. So it was a great opportunity for us to be involved and voice our opinions. And I spoke with most of you that night. I appreciate that time that I got with each of you. It was very important to me. I've learned since that some of my friends in a neighboring community have not had the luxury of knowing who the candidates were or who the finals were, and even getting a chance to meet them without prepared questions to present to those candidates. And just wanted to give you guys props because the way you did it with us was just an amazing opportunity for citizens to become involved. And you couldn't have done any more to give the opportunity to us. So hopefully it won't be for a very long time, but more residents will be here and participating in the next process like that. I'm confident that your selection was the best, and he'll be very good for the city and the citizens. So thank you for that. And secondly, I wrote a letter to the editor of the Daytona News Journal on Sunday, and it was not published. And out of courtesy to Councilman Foley, I would like to address that here, if I can. It was, there was a letter written, and it had some things that I disagreed with. So what I wrote was, I too attended the Port Orange special city council meeting last week. In no way did Mr. Foley slight the other councilman by not offering words of appreciation for appointing him to fill the District 1 city council seat back in January of 2021. As a matter of fact, it would not have been the appropriate time to do so. That special city council meeting was specifically with regard to the new city manager. Mr. Foley has one more council meeting tonight prior to the special election, and I have no doubt that he will thank the mayor and the councilman for the opportunity to serve the citizens at that appropriate time. Yes, Councilman Foley offered his congratulations to Mr. Clark and did state that he was looking forward to working with him, But please, let's not overlook the fact that Mr. Foley is a citizen and a small business owner in Port Orange, and Mr. Foley sits on more than one of the city's boards. In those capacities alone, Mr. Foley and the city manager will in fact work together in the future. It's a shame that Mr. Reinhagen, the single largest individual donor to Mr. Foley's opponent, publicly sensed that Mr. Foley, quote, considers his election a given, with no facts to back that opinion. Mr. Foley is actively involved in our community issues and working hard for all of the citizens of Port Orange. And if elected, on April 13th special election, the real winners of Port Orange will be the citizens. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks,
Foley.
Kat.
Thank you.
Timed that pretty good.
Awesome.
Thanks, Kat. Robin, I didn't have any others? Okay. Council comments, concerns? Why don't we start with Scott?
Sure. 2 weekends ago, we had almost a breakthrough, if you will, event at our Riverwalk facility. We had the Spring Fest event down there. It was hosted by the Port Orange Community Trust that kind of has the DBA name of Family Days, so folks are always asking about the Family Days group. Got a chance to go down there. Wanted to share my comments that I just thought it was it's an incredible environment down there. It really is a beautiful location. It was nice to see us kind of start to ease back into having events and having something down there in that destination area for the community. Thought it was very well set up, well attended. I've reached out to Jamie and her team, as well as encouraged the Port Orange Community Trust team to get together, do a good debrief. I know that hosting events in newer venues are going to present some challenges, and those are the challenges that we're going to have to work through. And I was kind of reminded, logistics can be a challenge for sure, putting on events of that size. And I was kind of reminded that the city center venue, if you go back 30, 35 years ago when we were having events there, we didn't have the resources and the ability to really take care of a lot of the logistical issues right away. And they've kind of evolved over the years to where hosting a venue at City Center is pretty much turnkey. Still takes a lot of hard work, but you've got a lot of the things that have been checked off the list over the years, and the good ideas have been facilitated, and the problems have been overcome. So there will be some of that in that Riverwalk area. So I want to encourage staff to do that and debrief openly and honestly, and bring those ideas and those things back to council. Let us know what we got to work on, because the one thing I'm confident of is that our residents absolutely love that facility down there. And there's a lot of stuff going on, not only just single events, but just the daily use is amazing down there. So it was really nice to see. My compliments to the city staff, as well as all the volunteers that put that organization on. So looking forward to a lot more of that. That's all I got for tonight.
Drew?
I'll just say ditto.
So
That's all I got tonight. That was a good event. I
you're
attended one
happy
of
it's
the
your
days.
birthday?
Yeah.
You're still older than me, though.
I always will be.
Jonathan?
I'll echo Scott's sentiments. I was there as well, and I love seeing that park get used. I had a great time interacting with some city staff, as well as people from Family Days, and with a few different ideas on what we can do to make more events happen over there and make better events happen at Riverwalk Park. But it was awesome all the way around, and like Scott, I agree. Please give us your feedback, whether you're a citizen or whether in Port Orange, or whether you visit Port Orange and you go to that park, or if you are a part of Family Days or you're on city staff. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your ideas on what we need to do to make sure we're getting the most out of that for our city and for our citizens. So please don't hesitate there. I just want to point out, in case anyone else didn't notice, that this is, I believe, Jamie's last meeting sitting up here with us. And I remember sitting here, and Scott looked her in the eye, Councilman Stiltner, said, "Are you sure that you're up for this?" Really pushed her on it. "Are you sure you can do this job?" Well, let me tell you, she could do this job, and she did an excellent job while she was serving. Working alongside of her, there was not a question that I had she did not answer promptly. She worked with me and educated me and brought me up to speed on things that I did not know about, that I now have a considerable amount of knowledge, and that's in a great part due to her, along with the rest of the staff, which I've said before has all stepped up. but I'm going to, I just want to say again, Jamie, I think you did a great job, and I'm very proud to have worked with you in the capacity that we have. That's all.
Thank you. Chase?
All right. I would also echo all the great comments tonight, and thank you, Jamie, as well. You've been a fantastic interim, and can't say enough about you. And I look forward to continue working. I look forward to seeing that guy in the back up here as well. I did want to take a moment to recognize that April being National Autism Awareness Month, and just to make a couple comments and just a couple statistics to point out for just our awareness. That 1 in 68 children are born on the spectrum. In addition to recognizing the children and adults, who are challenged on the spectrum, I also want to take a moment to recognize the parents, the guardians, siblings, and caretakers of those on the spectrum. Oftentimes we forget about the folks that are in the household of folks that are struggling. During one interesting fact to note is that during the 20-year, and it's sad to note, during the 20-year period, there's a U.S. news media report on 52 incidents, 47 males and 5 females, in which a child with ASD, on the autism spectrum disorder, died from homicide. Ages of the victims, death ranged from 2 years old to 20 years old. Parents, and here's the troubling part. Parents, other caretakers, and siblings accounted for 85% of the perpetrators of those homicides. The most commonly cited contributing factor to that action that was taken was overwhelming stress from caring for the autistic child. 23% of those victims died from gunshot wounds, 19% from drowning, and 19% by suffocation, strangulation, or asphyxiation. So with that said, my prayer, and it is my prayer indeed, that the parents and caretakers that are experiencing these challenges and depression find the strength and peace needed to make it just simply one day at a time. For the parents who are in it together, recognize that you are not alone. You can make it through as you stay together, and don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. In addition to that, I'm asking that everyday citizens would simply recognize that these challenges are existing today, and to offer in any way, shape, or form a helping hand and a compassionate heart.
For you as well, my friend.
Well said.
With that, the only thing I really wanted to do was pick on Drew for having a birthday and still being older than me, but I didn't have anything terribly serious tonight. I'm going to hold the balance of that until after transition, and I did have it, well, Jonathan stole my thunder. Boy, he's thoughtful. Jamie, I just wanted to say thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to have worked with you these past few months. You guys did a absolutely terrific bang-up job with helping with the city manager search and keeping us headed in the right direction. I have enjoyed our conversations. We've had our regular Monday morning sessions, and council see some of the results of some of my requests and things that we've talked about in the coming months, and my appreciation, and I look forward to more and more with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Board appointments, interviews, and reports. Environmental Advisory Board report.
Good evening, everybody. Christine Cunningham, Environmental Advisory Board Chairperson. But before I do that, I am the mother of one of the spouses for Back to Blue. I will be at the golf tournament. I will be, as a good mother, I have been assigned to one of those fabulous hole-in-one.
Jenny reeled you in, huh?
I'll be there, so I'm watching you.
Can you count
Oh, you don't have to worry about them
throughout the course of the day?
I'm sorry?
He'll need help counting his strokes
Yeah.
throughout the course of the day.
So, but I look forward to seeing all of you out there,
Will you have
whether
any
you
cold
can
sodas?
golf or not. and hope you all win something out there. It's such a great organization. So, you know, the environment is in the forefront of almost every front page, newspaper, Facebook, I don't care where you're at. Most of it is not good. We, as Port Orange, have done a good job of staying focused on what we can do. We have the advisory board so that we can engage the citizens. To remind you, we are now in the quarterly newsletter that goes out, and we would have done and been out there more had COVID not come. So getting back to focusing on our town and the future, single-use plastics and, again, water, pollution. We are going to reach out and collaborate with the Recreation Department because they are such a huge focus on our activities that go on in the city. So we're going to go to their meetings and try and get some sort of conversation going on where we can work as a team together. And that was one of our goals always, is to have our committee board work with the other teams within the city. We had a presentation by ECHO. That was a very detailed description and what we do in our city and how we've gained from the money from the ECHO program. If anybody wants to participate and learn more, there are sessions called ECHO listening sessions that are coming up in each city throughout April. That information is, you can find out through the city of Port Orange what those, where those meetings are. You can go in person or you can be virtual. And then we are hoping to engage more within that program to build more environmental projects within our city. So we also found out that we can combine grants. So that's more and more the focus on bringing that subject to all of our residents in Port Orange. Because some people aren't on the internet, some people don't go to our festivals or come to the meetings, but we have to attempt to reach everybody. And then we are hopefully getting our workshop together with all of you in May, if everybody's schedule will allow that, and sit down and have some future goals that we can meet and engage with between the council and the board members and come to a consensus of what we should be working on. We do have the 3 items that I addressed last time, but we really would engage with the board to find out bigger projects that we really think we should grow into, because we are one of the few that have an environmental advisory board, and I'd like to see that grow and it become the focus of what other people can reach out to engage their cities in more environmental projects and or concerns.
Okay. Look forward to that. Look forward to the workshop.
Yes.
Questions, Jonathan? Do you have any?
No, all good.
Okay.
No
Chase?
questions, but always enjoy seeing you.
Thanks, Joe.
Drew?
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the workshop.
Yes.
Scott?
Great. Thank you for suggesting that. I really appreciate that. Well, thank you so much, and take care.
Thanks,
Forward to
Christine.
it.
Good night.
Thanks. Golf Advisory Board report. Congratulations to you for getting your daughter off your payroll, sir.
2 to go. Lance Green, Golf Course Advisory Committee. You guys heard Bob here earlier, and we actually had our meeting today before this meeting. And a couple things stuck out that is huge for us, and it's the amount of Port Orange people that are playing the Port Orange Golf Course. What we're seeing around here right now is you're seeing golf courses actually failing. Our golf course right now is succeeding. With that being said, I was sitting back thinking about we are now at the 30-year mark since we have built this golf course, and I thought about it, 30 years ago I had to clean up the blocks because a tornado knocked them down, but put them back up. So with that, here's the deal with Cypress Head. It's a mature community. The golf course is mature, and we are now in a phase where I feel like we need to continue to to take the next steps forward to protect it for the next 30 years. We're facing some challenges out there. But I'll tell you one thing though, is that one person can make a difference. And right now we have that person on board as our superintendent. And that guy is doing a phenomenal job at making the numbers. This is what he's doing. He's making a good golf course that's now bringing people out to play our course. The numbers are obviously going to be affected next quarter because Scott played there and you're playing there. But we'll hide that under the maintenance thing. But with that being said, over time things have happened. And as an example is hole number 14 as an example. When I moved there 20 years ago, the lake had vegetation all the way around it. Vegetation's not good for golf, okay? There's snakes and there's alligators. Well, by moving that vegetation away, we're losing the fairway every single year. We're losing 2 feet of the fairway. We've lost about 10 feet of that fairway already, and the irrigation pipes and everything are actually out in the pond. And we're having to go out there and do these temporary fixes to hold it in place. But these are the kind of things that are going to come up in front of you guys in the next couple of years when we talk about budgets. We've got some lakes that are going to have to be shored up. 14 is an example. I don't know, we talked about it with Bob. It's like, okay, you can't go put vegetation back because you're going to put the alligators and the snakes right back where people hunt a golf ball. So that might be a situation where a wall might need to be built or rock can be built. But we have a couple places where over time the golf course and the maturity of the golf course has taken its toll at eroding away at what we are. But with that, we couldn't be more happier with where we are. The golf course is doing well, but with that being said, we need to continue to reinvest into it every year as we get up on these budgets. And I know the budget's coming up here in the next couple months. We got things like cart path restoration in there still every single year. Those things that that we've got to look forward to. Darren's done a great job at repairing all the sprinklers already. Got all the valve boxes replaced. He's fertilizing the golf course through the irrigation system like he's supposed to. The things that he has done, and usually the winter's the worst time for Cypress Head. We tend to kill grass or lose grass. He's done a great job at keeping grass, and we're getting ready to go into the growing season. He's feeling really confident about where he stands. And again, our whole golf committee had nothing but praise for the guy and doing a great job and got us in the right direction, which I think is why we are in fact making money and doing a little bit better as we go on. So with that, like I said, the budgets are coming up year after year after year. We've got to start budgeting for the next 30 years of maintaining it. The cost of and the values of Cypress Head neighborhoods continue to rise, so the golf course brings a huge amenity to the city of Port Orange. Other than that, you guys, please, we're just filling Scott's divots. Just drop the check off, Don, and be
I'll
good
bring my
with
own
it.
sand at least.
Just drop off the check and be good with it.
Just give.
Happy birthday, old timer.
Thank you, sir.
Any
Appreciate
questions?
Yeah, I don't want to be shortening the fairway of 14, and I'm not really fond of a wall up there because sometimes I rely on that skip to get across.
See, if the
water.
weeds were there, you wouldn't get that skip, but you'd get snake bit by a snake.
No, I carry my clubs with me.
Just because you think it's a par 6,
Used to be.
Should be.
Thank you, Lance.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
man.
Thanks, sir.
Appreciate it.
With that, we're going to take an 8-minute recess before we get into the public hearing portion of the meeting. We are in recess. We are back. The public hearing portion of the meeting is now open, which brings us to item 25, second reading of ordinance number 2021-9. Ordinance number 2021-9 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Article 1, Section 2-2 of the Code of Ordinances relating to fingerprinting of employees, providing for a clarification of pre-employment screening, providing for codification, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, and providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
I'll move to approve ordinance number 2021-9.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item is open on the floor for discussion. Second reading. Council, do we have any questions or comments?
No, this is.
There being none, would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, coming back to us. Final comments, questions? Council? Call the roll.
Councilmember Foley?
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont?
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. And that closes the public hearing portion of the meeting. Brings us to the regular agenda item. Item 26, discussion regarding agreement and contribution for First Step Shelter. Jamie, you want to frame that one for us?
Sure, Mayor, thank you. Mayor and Council, at the request, this item has been added to the agenda to decide whether or not an additional payment will be made this year in support of the operations of the First Step Shelter Program. Staff has provided some history and some comparison information for your consideration. The last contribution to the First Step Shelter was made in the amount of $35,000. This item was not budgeted in the current fiscal year, so if council's in support of making a contribution this year, staff is prepared to bring forward a budget resolution on the next agenda item to allocate these funds. Staff has been in contact with the executive director, Dr. Fallberg, in discussion and putting an agreement in place, and we have reached general consensus on what that agreement would contain, so she's willing to move forward in that direction, and we'll be bringing that to her board in the next couple of days if council decides to move forward with a contribution.
And in your opinion, that's what would help keep us to remain Pottinger compliant?
I do believe that there would be value to have a document in place to show that the contribution that we're making is in exchange for the continued operation, not only the continued operation, but the availability for our Port Orange police officers to make referrals to the safe zone, which is noted to be a come-as-you-are shelter, which would keep us compliant.
Chase, you're our liaison of the board. Why don't you lead off on the discussion with that?
Yeah, well, first, I'd like to ask a question, Jamie. Reading through reading through the details of the CARES Act dollars, would this fall into that category? And I understand that we don't want to do reoccurring costs with that. Nevertheless, so we wouldn't have to do a budget resolution, reaching into reserves to do that. Is that an option?
So under the most recent ARPA, which is the American Rescue Plan Act that was issued, we have not received those funds. There is some discussion about the ability to possibly transfer to some nonprofit agencies. They have not provided us the full direction of what will be required for those, but that is something that is on our radar as a potential funding source. However, for this year, we would be looking to allocate from fund balance if we wanted to make the payment in this fiscal year.
But it's possible that in the future, funding could be allocated to that, or at least for next year's budget.
We are keeping that on our radar as a possibility as the direction comes out.
Okay. And based on the information provided in the docket here, you might notice the original request for Port Orange to contribute was $85,000, just under $86,000. That is not the ask of the board. That was the original. Use some sort of formula to gauge as to how much they were going to ask from each municipality very early on.
It was,
so
2017, I think it was. 2017, 2018. It's been quite a while.
Yeah, and so yeah, that's
long before it even opened.
Right, and that was I think spearheaded from Daytona staff in coordination with Faith, I believe. So that is not the ask. The ask is to continue with the $35,000 I think is reasonable. I would advocate as a board member to do that, but as a council member, I would advocate that we continue on with this path because just if anything other than to be compliant with the law. You know, we can talk about the humanitarian efforts, which are worthy of discussion, because I'll go ahead and, you know, we agreed as a council that we did not want to participate in a shelter that was a come as you are, stay as you are type of facility. I believe that facilities that operate that way, or 24 hours a day, you can come and go as you please and treat it like a hotel room, I think only serves to contribute to that type of a lifestyle. And I don't believe that we should subsidize homelessness by supporting that type of a strategy. This strategy that we have here as a board is come as you are, but it's not a stay as you are. There has to be a program in place for you to get back on your feet. So I believe it is a worthwhile endeavor to be a part of simply from that aspect. Adding to that, Pottinger compliance. If we don't do it, if we don't piggyback on the safe zone that is provided for, then we have to do that ourselves. And can we do it for under 35 grand? Yeah, we can probably put, you know, some faucet and bathroom out, porta-john out in the middle of the woods somewhere. But number one, that's not the humane approach. And number two, first question you're going to get from the public, where is it at? Is it near my house? Is it near my business? I think we'd have a NIMBY problem in that regard. So in order to continue with our compliancy and our commitment to keeping our parks safe and clean and keeping the tool in the box for our public safety officers, I think this is the right move.
I would tend to agree with you on a lot of counts, and I just wanted to note that proof of that, what the shelter's actually doing, came at a cost recently when a young girl lost her life crossing a road, leaving because she had started a job and she was going to be going to work, and it's really a shame that happened. But out of that came the realization that this shelter is actually changing lives, and I think that because of that it is not but a short-term thing, that it is making the impact we want it to make.
Well, and I'll add to that. Good point. And I'll add to that while you know we understand that the promise that was made was for 100 residents, but the reality is you have a budget that can only be stretched so far. So we have $1 million coming in, about 1.1. So we therefore needed a budget for $1.1 million budget until more funding is brought in. Based on that, then we can increase the population. We think we maxed out at 40 folks, but our staff is pretty stretched, and we've included up to now 50 residents. And probably the best result thus far has been 70 people that have been placed in permanent housing, whether with family members, with a friend, or their own place. That's the difference that this particular shelter and this program provides folks. It really provides getting people to become back on their feet, become productive members of society again, and that's what it's for.
Well, I was hoping that we could achieve as a council that we would go ahead and continue to support it at the current level. It sounds like that's what you're recommending to the rest of us, Chase, as our liaison, and I want to make sure that we have that consensus before we bring the budget resolution.
That is my recommendation.
Okay. Drew, comments, questions, or are you in agreement?
No,
consensus?
I mean, I think that when did it open? December of
19.
No, the safe zone.
Oh, the safe zone, yeah.
Yeah.
Hasn't been open, but just a few short months.
So are we thinking do the budget resolution for $35K this year, and then, but during the budget process, budget for the amount for 2022? Is that what we're thinking, or is this going to be for that amount then?
This is for this year.
Okay, so this payment could be made as soon as we can have that budget resolution and do that, and then we plan the next one. Okay, yeah, I think that, I'm on board with the 35K.
It's kind of what we discussed some time ago.
Yeah, I was thinking, I
And
thought
yeah.
the safe zone opened a little later, and I was gonna say, well, we didn't have the availability, so the payment should be a little bit less this year, but we're really only sitting a month out of the.
And I understand
fiscal year.
that, and if I could speak to
Yeah,
that for a second,
sure.
because that was my holdup as well.
Yeah.
And if I weren't on the board, that would be my position right now. So wait a second, this is not what we promised, this is
Yeah,
where we should
yeah.
be at. But having seen the inner workings of it and the
Sure.
challenges of getting that safe zone, we were promised something as a board, something different.
Yeah.
And when I got on the board and I saw, there was so much that was out of the control of the board
Yeah.
that were through other entities were leading that charge. And when we were able to take it on, the challenge of being kind of stuck with Catholic Charities for a little while,
Yeah.
the price tag that they had in place, this could have been in overnight.
Yeah.
But being able to get out of that contract, that was for 5 years, but to break it without any penalty one way or another, we were able to act and move forward within a matter of just a few months. And a $250,000 donation from one individual, Roseanne Tornatore, sits on the board, to make that happen, pretty remarkable. And I'd be willing to reward that effort.
Yeah. Scott, your thoughts?
No, I'm on board with supporting Chase's recommendation, but I also think it's worth noting that the amount of folks that are contacted by our police officers that refuse to go to the facility is overwhelming. I mean, it's not even close. So I think it is important for our residents to know that our officers make those offers, and they try their best to utilize that facility that we're going to be paying for. But the fact of the matter is a lot of them just do not want that service. They don't want to go out there. So for whatever reason that is, I think it's important, because we still hear from a lot of residents, hey, there's a homeless person here, there's a homeless person there, and I know a lot of our officers know them all, and they know them by name, and they've offered them multiple times. But for whatever reason, they don't want to go out there. And I know there's other organizations, non-law enforcement related, that go out there and encourage them and offer assistance as well, and that's great, because sometimes not being in uniform is a good thing. But a lot of these folks, it's a lifestyle by some of that choice, or for whatever reasons. And I know everybody's got their reasons, but I think it's important that people understand, just because we're funding a shelter doesn't mean these folks are always going to want to go out there. So, but I definitely want to support Chase's recommendation. I think he's on point with that.
Okay. Jonathan?
I actually, I'm glad Councilman Stiltner brought that up. I asked for those numbers on the reporting data this afternoon, just so everyone else knows. 246 people have been contacted since 2020. It's the life of the shelter for us. Of which we transported 3 that were actually accepted, 9 to the safe zone, which has only been open for a short period of time now. 173 refused, just absolutely refused to go. And so just something to note there. I respect Chase and his position that he's serving in the capacity in both regards, and if that's his recommendation, then I'm happy to support it. I would have the condition of, I want to see us have a piece of paper that says we are getting what we are getting. If we're going to, I want to know that we're going to be Pottinger compliant, and that we're going to have room at the end, so to speak. That's something that would make me feel really good about it, is to have that contingency upon them signing that agreement.
Yeah, we've had those discussions, and I have brought that before the board. We'll have a meeting on Thursday, and I will make my position very, very firm that exactly the phrase I use. There has to be room in the inn. We're not going to pay for a service and not be able to get it. So that will be all but guaranteed. I don't want to say guaranteed, because you never know what situation could transpire for a particular night, but at the end of the day, we want to be guaranteed a slot.
Mayor, just one more quick thing to add on to Jonathan's. He reminded me when he was talking about it recently, the News Journal did an article on probably our most famous homeless person in the city of Port Orange, Phil, who rides around on a three-wheel bike and sharpens knives and gets by that way. Really good, interesting article. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go look that back up. But you know, they interviewed him, and he currently now is and does have the desire. I guess he's close to 65 or right at 65 years old, and living the way he has lived for the last 25, 30 years. He's no longer interested in that, so he is looking for some assistance, and that's being provided to him. But the course of the interview was really interesting about why he chose that lifestyle, and that's just how he wanted to live and how he wanted to go through life day by day. But it's an interesting article, so I encourage anybody that hasn't read it to try to find that on the News Journal site and read that article.
So it's the consensus of council to support the resolution being brought forward. Jamie, do you have need a further direction from us on that?
I'm clear, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. City Attorney report.
Nothing for me tonight.
Thank you, sir. Interim City Manager report.
Sure, Mayor and Council, I just wanted to briefly take this moment to express my gratitude. Thank you for all of your support over the last couple of months. It's been great challenges, great learning, growth, opportunity. Most importantly, I do want to thank staff, every one of them, for their support as well. I could not have done any of it without them. So I won't name names. They've all been supportive, and I don't want to leave any of them out, but what a tremendous group of professionals that we have. So learned a lot, and I look forward to continuing to learn and grow with Mr. Clark here.
Awesome. You will be a very integral part of our Port Orange family for a long time to come. So
Yes,
thank you very
that's the
much
hope.
for stepping us
Appreciate
up
it.
and helping us through what we would call these most interesting times.
Yes, sir.
City Council Committee reports. River to Sea TPO.
Not a whole lot going on there. They're doing a presentation on how projects are being prioritized and tweaking that a little bit with some of the anticipated finance challenges that'll be forthcoming. But there is some interesting discussion at the federal level. Obviously, elections kind of create changes, and so where are things going to come from that aspect in terms of infrastructure, roadways being a big part of that. So we're in a little bit of a wait and see with some of that stuff. Of course, it all kind of filters down and ties into state dollars and so forth and local stuff. But they're working on how do they prioritize that type of stuff and reviewing accidents and traffic counts and things like that. So that's kind of going on.
Okay, General Employees Pension Plan.
Pretty much
I
had
was going
that
to say
tonight.
we got the lengthy report earlier, right?
Yeah, they stole the fire on the numbers. First of all, I actually missed the last meeting, but the numbers are great. I'm going to miss more meetings if the numbers stay good. So that's what it takes.
Good job, great oversight.
But just rough numbers, we have crossed that $40 million mark in market value for the general employee pension. We're at $40,623,000 and some change. The February return rate was at 2.9%, which brings us to a fiscal year to date return of 12.85. So solid stuff.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Just a quick reminder, before we close out, 7 days from now, we do have a city election to fill the remaining term of Marilyn Ford. So I just want to remind everybody, April 13th is election day in the city of Port Orange. It's a one-item ballot, so there's really no need to worry about long lines at the ballot box. You should be able to get in, get out, take care of it. If you have your ballots, seven days away, get them in the mail now, or get them turned in, or show up on election day. Does anybody else have anything else that comes before us this evening?
Miss
Robin.
Quick, piggyback that, our swearing-in ceremony will be April 20th at our council meeting.
At our next meeting. Okay.
And I just want to say very, very quickly, thank you again for the opportunity to serve as the interim councilman over the last few months. You appointed me to this position, and it has been one of the greatest honors of my life to work alongside you as well as staff and to serve our citizens. I have learned so much, and I have a new appreciation that I did not have before for the amount of work this takes. for everyone here in this position and in your position. And no matter what happens, I will be extremely thankful for the rest of my life for the opportunity that I've had the last for 3 months. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it sincerely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will come again in 2 weeks, and we'll start with a swearing-in ceremony. It'll be the first meeting in which our new city manager will be in charge, so we'll have a very active agenda to go along with that. And we will see you all then. Everybody have a good night. Thank you.